Hello and welcome to what is outside a absolutely stunning, if blustery, day here in beautiful Nova Scotia. October, first week in October, I think, yes. Coming up to Canadian Thanksgiving Day this weekend. And I am doing a bit of bulb planting some spring bulbs. Got some tulips here, lots of different tulips, and I'm planting them in my pots. Et voila! Last week I did a sort of bit of video on planting sort of daffodils in a natural look, natural setting, and this week I thought I would get amongst doing the pots that I have for spring. And you know, bulbs are great for planting in pots and not having to have them in the position when they're growing in spring, and then just sort of moving them somewhere that you want, you know, for colour, just as they're about to flower, etc. So that's one of the the really good things about planting spring flowering bulbs in plant pots. And obviously, well, not obviously, but also the fact that you can keep them sort of inside and get them coming up that little bit earlier, keep them warmer, and than the rest of the bulbs that you have around the garden. And then again, you've got that burst of colour when there's not a lot of colour anywhere else, and you can have it where you want it. So I thought I'd do a little video today on planting bulbs in pots. There's a few things you need to watch out for. I always use, as much as possible, terracotta pots. I've got my pallet planters out there as well. I'll be using those, and you know, they need to be a decent size, because your tulips and daffodils, etc. What are these ones? These, you know, they want to be a good 6 inches down, but then they also need a couple of inches underneath the bulb for root growth. So there's at least 8 inches that your pot needs to be, really, to get a good display, or give it good conditions for the actual tulip to grow. But one of the other good things about planting them in pots is you can plant lots and lots of them together, because it's like a temporary endeavour. You're not going to leave them in the pot, well, I don't anyway, all summer. Once they've done their display, we can move them somewhere else to sort of die down. But while they're in the pot, instead of, whereas usually in your garden you want to be planting your bulbs about 3 or 4 inches apart, you could actually plant your bulbs about 1 inch apart in here, as long as you're giving it a good amount of water and a good amount of feed throughout the sort of flowering season, or leading up, etc. They'll do just fine. So that's good, because you can get a real good mass of colour from a little small space. So why don't we get on with this now, shall we? So I have got picked these up the other day, Queen of the Night. I like these ones. Real, that sort of dramatic dark colour. It's an unusual colour for a flower, isn't it? A bit of exoticness, I think, if that's a word. Anyway, so let's start off. So I've got a terracotta pot. I'm not one of these people that goes mad on, scrubbing the life out of my pot, after it's had previous whatever else. It had a hosta in here. I've given it a good brush down, got rid of all the old earth. If there's a few organisms in there, well, so's the earth. That's my view anyway. And obviously we want it to start sort of aging on the outside anyway, so that is good. So first things first, so we've got the pots, got a hole in, make sure you've got a hole in the bottom of your pots, but also we want that pot, that hole, not to get blocked up, because your tulips and daffodils, or especially your tulips, like good drainage. So I've got an old crock from pot, and it's got a bit of a curve in it, so I'm going to place that over the hole, et voila. So then earth on top, and then that hole won't get blocked up, hopefully. So the earth I'm using, you can use potting compost, but I urge you, please, think about the climate now, and try not to use any peat-based compost as much as is possible. Now we all want to be moving towards non-peat-based composts, and mine is actually my own stuff completely. So I've got a third compost, a third leaf mould, in fact sieved leaf mould, but you don't have to. Leaf mould's good enough, well rotted leaf mould, and a third well rotted horse manure. And that has produced, this is nice and watery now, a really nice mix. Got lots of nutrients in it, but it'll be nice and light as well and drain well, which is what, as I said, the tulips like. So I'm going to fill this a couple of inches high with compost. Right, let me bring this camera a little bit nearer. So we've got a couple of inches of compost in there. Now, where's my Queen of the Night gone? Here we are, the beauties. It's great when, you know, finally you start to see the tulips come towards the start of spring, and you know that finally that long winter is going to be over. Like I said, I'm going to fill this up good and proper. So I'm just putting these an inch or so apart. And that should give me a nice dramatic display of beautiful bulbs in the spring. So I've got, what have I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there we go. You see that? Got 10 in there. Oh, ship roll. So where are we? Can you see me? Let's move back. Yeah, the light's slightly in the wrong position for me, but here we are. So now I'm just going to fill that with compost. Let's get the old bucket. Not quite to the top, obviously. Give enough room for watering in the springtime. Right, so I've really given this a really good water beforehand, because my leaf mould, it hasn't rained here for a good week or 10 days, so all of my compost and leaf mould etc was quite dry, and my horse manure was from what was that hotbed and has been my cucumber bed for the last few months, and so that has been quite dry over the last week or so, even though I do, you know, I water the cucumbers, and you can see the cucumbers are still doing remarkably well. It's like a bit of a jungle there, with cucumbers all over the manor, and the rest of the bed here now. I've got my potato experiment going on. Still got tomatoes coming, and San Marzano tomatoes up there. Still got peppers growing in the different pots, etc. So lots of things still going on in the greenhouse. But back to the pot. So we fill this up nice. Give it a good water if you haven't. Now I am going to keep these basically, I'm going to put them outside now, but really for as soon as the frosts come, I am going to bring them inside and leave them in the greenhouse all winter. The reason I do that is because even though it gets really cold here in the winter, we get lots of ups and down days. So, you know, we'll get a load of rain. This will sort of unfreeze a bit, then it will freeze, the pot will crack, and then also the water getting down into the actual bulbs, because it, you know, unfreezes, gets down there, gets wet, freezes again, they all burst, turn to mush. That's no good. So what I do is I just leave them in the greenhouse. If you haven't got a greenhouse, leave them in your garage, and you know, for most of the winter. If you're in an area that gets really cold, do that. You know, anywhere like the UK and places like that, as a rule, you can leave them outside. But also we have the problem of mice and squirrels, don't we? So that's another good reason for just leaving your pot inside in the garage, in the greenhouse for most of the winter, Just give it a water every now and then. Don't have to do that too much. And this, I'll bring it out in early spring once it starts to warm up, and we'll have an absolutely beautiful display of that stunning Queen of the Night and all the other. What else have I got here? Triumph. That looks a beauty as well, doesn't it? So I'll be looking forward to them. But lots of pots to be doing up, and as you can see, the one on my pool deck there, I'm going to see if I can fill that one. That'll take a good 30-40, I think, tulips. That'll look really good. Anyway, that's enough of me gabbling on. A few more pots to do now, and job will be definitely a good one.